What?
Well, me and you really quite fit here.
I've been here since 2004 with my wife Monica.
Oh, okay.
She was actually
She thought you
baptized
said
and
Hanukkah.
confirmed.
I thought you said Hanukkah.
Now, my,
Yeah.
No?
So we're doing a Jewish-Christian relations class, and it's kind of a spin-off, sort of an educational outgrowth of a class that we had last J term at
Yes.
Trinity Lutheran
That
Seminary.
I participated in.
So Ben was one of my students. Michael Wright, our
MIC student. Or
That's
LIC
what is it?
student.
LIC now, Learning in Context student, was one of my students, and we met for 3 weeks and got into a lot of the facets of Jewish-Christian relations, and each portion of it is massive unto itself,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So we decided that we're going to do a little sort of facing history, facing ourselves. What we build it is facing the Holocaust in ourselves. So we're going to do a little interactional and talk about the Holocaust today, and then we'll talk later about what we're doing next time.
So brief commercial break.
Uh-huh.
We have Reverend Skip Cornett coming. Fourth week we have Bob
Right.
Lane
Next
from
week.
the Columbus Jewish Federation coming next week. And the third week we have Dr. Julie Faith Parker. And this was all paid for by a grant from Thriving Corporation.
Ah.
So we have to get that commercial break in there.
So,
Okay.
so this is the first time we've done this together, so we're going to kind of play off each other.
Yes.
But we thought we'll tell you a little bit where we're coming from. So Ben, you...
I grew up in Philadelphia. Northeast Philly has a high percentage of the population is Jewish. I went to college where I had more intimate exposure to the Jewish culture. I did things like go to Seder's with my Jewish friends. When someone in their family died, I sat Shiva with them, which is the traditional 7 days of mourning that the Jews observe after somebody dies. Ray, on the other hand,
I came from South Dakota. Well, let's look at Pennsylvania. This is 1899, this is 2014. And look at where Pennsylvania is in the number.
198,000 Jews. So between New York,
293 in 2014.
yeah, between New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, there's about 2 million Jews. As opposed to South Dakota,
Yeah, which has 250. So I come from the lowest Jewish population state in the Union. So, Jews in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, there are probably 3 to 4 times more Jews in that metropolitan area than there are people in South Dakota. So they came to South Dakota a lot in the late 1800s. They came to Deadwood and Sturgis in the gold rush and became merchants there, tradesmen. But you went to college and you had more Jewish interaction,
yes,
correct?
yes. So there's no ordained rabbi in South Dakota,
So you see the interaction.
but
It was not too likely, but I had a foot doctor who was trained in Chicago, and he came out there because there was no chiropodist in the town and stayed his whole life.
Right.
Great person, so I got to know him, and he gave me a good understanding. My flat feet are arched.
so then Ray migrated to Minneapolis, Minnesota.
So I got a chance
At Lutheran
at
Seminary.
Luther Seminary and now in Columbus, Ohio, to be in large Jewish communities. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the beginning of next week, because I want to show you where Trinity and Capital sit in the Jewish environment of Columbus.
Okay.
So,
We are going to do our devotional today, and it is going to be the Shema. Remember, Jewish theology is monotheism. There is only one God. That's all you need to know about Jewish theology. That's it. Okay? Okay? Yahweh, YHWH, here's the Jewish, YHWH, literally translated means I am who I am. That is the name of God, but Jews are forbidden to say the name of God out loud. So the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, they can't say out loud. So we often see words that are substituted, like Adonai or Elohim, which means Lord. So the Shema is the first part, and it begins with one of the best known, most fundamental expressions of Jewish belief, and the one from which the prayer gets its name, Shema Israel. So the first verse of the Shema relates to the kingship of God. The first verse, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Has ever been regarded as the confession of the belief in one God, or the monotheistic theology of the three great Abrahamic religions. So here we have it in the Hebrew, Shema Israel, Adonai, Elohim, Adonai, Echad.
How much Hebrew have you had?
So how much Hebrew have you had? Yeah, I did 3 semester credit hours in Hebrew. So I thought it would be fun for all of us to try to read the transliterated Hebrew out loud. Shema Israel, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Any takers? Okay. Hear, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And it goes, Baruch Shem Kavod Balhutu Lahim Vahi. Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. This verse is actually taken out of Deuteronomy, but this verse, the second verse right here, is not in the Bible at all. It is a response that was written by the rabbis many years later after the Shema was used as a devotion. V'ahetu et Adonai Eloheinu b'chol v'laveka b'chol nash'acha v'kol mokadecha. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and all your soul, and all your mind. V'ahetu havarim hayu asher achonai b'chadim hayu v'laveka. And these words that I command you today shall be in your heart. Vishnika aham veredera tabam. And you shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall speak of them. But hashivat bahavika malaveka vereru vishnika bakol yavakumka. When you sit at home, and when you walk along the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. That's the command for the Jews to say the Shema in the morning and at night. Yeshartu lelelot aleveka echfam l'tafot bain echanaha. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be frontlets between your eyes. If you've ever seen people in Israel that wear those things at the Western Wall and they pray, those are the frontlets of their eyes. They wear them around their head, and they contain the Shema written in that little box. And Talit, which is a thing that Orthodox Jews and some Reformed and some Conservative Jews wear on their arm underneath their clothes, also has the Shema written on it. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. If you ever go into a Jewish home, you might see a little thing about that wall that has stuff written on it. That's the mezuzot, okay? And the mezuzot has the Shema written in it, and it's stuffed inside. And as you walk through the door, the Shema is right there. So this is the most fundamental theology of all of Judaism.
So, could we have them at least on this first sheet, right?
Yes.
Trying to transliterate it. right to left. But this is left to right. So
Yes.
just give it a try. And we'll read along with you. Vanak nu torim umish
Kavim, Umobim, Lifnai,
melech
Melachai,
Melech
Kadosh, Baruch. You have, it's a very guttural language, you have to get
Yeah. So you saw the Shema. So we gave you all the theology there is in Judaism. It's in that one line. So to get Jewish communities to sit down and do theology like we would do at Trinity Lutheran Seminary or Methodist Theological School in Ohio or Pontifical College, Josephine, there isn't much interest. But beyond that line, right? All those other, what's going on? They're binding around their arms and they're putting things on their doorposts. So,
And you're teaching
Yeah.
diligently to your children.
so Jewish life is a commitment if you want to be observant.
To live the
It's
desire.
not orthodoxy that are after, but orthopraxy. To do your life. We can learn a lot from it.
Yeah, you can.
So, now, on the Christian side, we have a lot to do because we've had historically many problems relating to the Jews from the inception of the church and on. So, it's kind of up to our faith to work in relation, to lead the way in the Jewish Christian relation. So, we want a little interactional piece here at the beginning. If we could do this like in what?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Maybe twosome or threesomes get together. And here's the question. If you hear the word Jew, or if you meet a Jewish person, what comes to mind? And we want you just to talk amongst yourself. We won't have you report back. But if in the course of our conversation here you could bring
Something comes up.
something comes up,
Yeah,
test it out.
just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes.
Okay.
So, I'm Gary. If anybody wants to say anything and they don't want it recorded, just to tell you, and we'll turn off the audio. That's the word. There are submitting languages, so there is some, it's distinctive enough. It's distinctive. But they're not close. And you can write Arabic. Yeah, well, they speak Hebrew. There's a lot of modernized. That's biblical Hebrew up there. It's quite a bit the same, except that a lot of new words are in there. Day to day. Yeah.
And so I guess I have to read it so I can what is going to coming into the but I did not. That's what I was told. Yeah.
What I did.
Shut the door. Who knows what goes on? They do it. They do it.
My Sunday best. I used to nanny for Jewish families.
Okay, I think we're about done.
Yeah.
So let's reconstitute ourselves.
So some interesting things come up in this
Yeah.
about. But I'm going to tell you out in South Dakota, one of the first memories I have about Jude. When my sister was married, I was her ring bearer. She's 12 years older than I am. So when George and my sister were married, he went off to the Korean War and served as Air Force. And so her father-in-law was going to take her to help her buy a car. Why not my father? Well, my father-in-law went because he could Jew the people down. And I thought, what? You know,
I had
5 or 6 years
I had a grandfather who was kind of like Archie Bunker and said, you can always tell a Jew because they have grocery store feet. Because they always ran grocery stores and they had little wooden planks that they had on the bottom of these stores in Philadelphia. And they always walked like this and they would fall through the planks.
So there are a couple questions about Adonai. We'll get to it next week.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot about what Judaism is.
So this is Ray's shtick
I'm going to do
here.
my shtick here. So, one of the other members of our class in January 2015 is her mother was a Hitler major.
Yes.
And brought up a Lutheran girl in Germany and kind of modeled to become a mother of the children of the third Reich model.
So
So
this is
this is what sort of the standard to which she was to reach, adhere to. So she and I have been working kind of on her memoir, her interaction with her mother, who was a war bride, came to the United States, ended up living in the Jewish community, and she, throughout her lifetime, was friend with many Jews. Now, Karina, her daughter, who I'm studying with, is working vocationally to be in a Jewish education center in New York City. So she suggested that we work through facing history in ourselves, and it's a number of just pieces about Jewish Christian history, as well as the Holocaust, and little things you can read, and then interact over, right? So at the end of our hour today, we're going to do one little interactional piece. But people of all ages work with the interactions in this book, just on human nature. You know, what do you think of when you think of a Jew? What do you do when you think of the Holocaust? If you're German, if you're American, if you served in the armed forces, if you have Jewish genes and you're in a Christian church. So I'm in a spirituality group now in this church 5 of us in the group, and 3 of us have some Jewish background. So, this 8th grader, I think, sums it up. This thing would be so much easier to learn if it weren't true. So the true things are where we have to do a lot of work to get to the kernel of what our faith is and to relate to Judaism or their faith and culture. Okay, so we just had Christmas and we're heading down toward Lent. So Christianity came in after the fall of Jerusalem in 70. Christianity and Judaism developed. And there's a lot of talk about whether they are, how they interrelated in the early years. But they did part ways and kind of develop their own faith and culture. So in 312 Common Era, Constantine, pretty much he was converted, right? And then under Constantine, the start of that stage of the Roman Empire, even though persecution was going on with Christians as well as with Jews, there was a time when they were not persecuting Jews, treated them well. But when Christianity was finally established as the religion of the Roman Empire, Jews started to be marginalized. And there was exclusion of Jews in many activities in the political and the civil and daily life. So, I want to give a quote from a Jewish scholar who writes a lot about the Talmud, Jacob Neusner. He said, Jews never dreamed that they wouldn't be in Jerusalem. And they have fought that, struggled with it. How do we have our faith and be away from Jerusalem? So we might be in Eastern Europe, we might be in Scandinavia, where my ancestors come, might be in the U.S. Most of them are away from Jerusalem. And he says, but Christians never had learned to govern, and they still don't. They don't know how to treat, how to work with their citizens as well as how do you treat minorities, how do you treat the whole. Christianity was good as a minority religion, but when it became dominant, it was a struggle. So that kind of, I think, gives us a grist, something to think about on the slide before. So, one of the pieces that in our class we talk about, we'll have maybe Dr. Powell come and talk to us about, is there some anti-Judaism in the New Testament? So, now whether there is or not, and the purpose of the authors is if you're a Jew listening to it. John 14:6, Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So as a Christian, that touches the core of who I am. But how has it hurt as a Jew? And then on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being shut for the disciples were for fear of the Jews. Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, peace be with you. So kind of an opposition could be read into that. They're naming you as maybe out to get us. There's no documentation that Jews ever did use crucifixion or anything like that. So you can study the passages in Matthew and Acts. So if anybody's interested in working with some of those texts, there's a neat volume. And Skip Cornett will be here in a couple of weeks, so we could ask him on some of these texts. He's actually worked with Jewish community on some of those tough texts. So I'm going to work through this quickly, but you see these two figures that hang on European cathedrals? So this one is ecclesia, and that's synagoga. So their name. So it's kind of a complex background to them, but they kind of represent the two religions. And some of the biblical narrative that's used to give some rationale to this is synagogue is Leah, the old one, and ecclesia is Rachel, the new one. So she is the ecclesia is a queen, has a staff, the cup, communion cup, which catches the blood of Jesus, wears this regal gown, and wears the crown. Synagogue has a broken staff, and is blindfolded, and wears a peasant's dress. So I want to just carry that one step farther into actually what's written in the Church Fathers. So in Clark Williamson's A Guest in the House of Israel, we've used this as a text in our course. He lists out passages from the early Christian writers, what their views of the Jews were, what their views of we, the Christian church, is. So could you move me forward?
Sure.
So I just collected the words, and I put them in a wordle. So just take a look at these words about the church that the early Christian writers used. Any of them stand out?
Blood of Christ.
Blood of Christ, okay. Central.
Eternal King.
The eternal King.
That stands up pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Bearer of salvation.
Bearer of salvation. So these are really core of what we see in the faith of the Christian church.
Well, we also have Jacob.
Jacob
And Rachel.
and Rachel. So Rachel, the young one. Jacob, he was the second son, but he won out, right?
Right.
Over Esau. New people. New baptism. Okay? So here's what the early church fathers, in building a distinction of Christianity and Judaism, we're starting to say, in many different contexts, so we're just lifting up words that
Written by
were
the
used.
church fathers. They were describing the difference between Judaism and Christianity.
Yeah. So, what stands out there?
Bloody hands.
Bloody hands. So we had blood of Christ, now we have bloody hands. And so what does that refer to?
Yeah.
The opposite, the crucifixion, or blaming the crucifixion of the Jews. So you get deicide in here, and Christ killer. Anything else? There's Leah.
There's Leah, next to synagogue. We have wine down there. Tottering of Peter. So these are all words that the early church fathers used to describe.
What are the children of devil?
Okay.
What are the children?
So, as the images grow, right? You start seeing things in art, in architecture. So that's a good lead-in to where we're
So,
going.
if we visit Europe, like Fran and I have, there are many cathedrals that are Christian, but if you look at the outside, they have things called union salles, which are making fun of the Jews. They have pigs with depictions of Jews suckling on the pigs. These are actually on the outsides of the cathedrals. Here's the one in Alais, France, from the 14th century. You can see the pig looks almost like the devil, and then you have a Jew with his yarmulke on, suckling on the pig. In fact, there are so many of them that this is just a short list, including Wittenberg, okay? Now, some of them have taken them down, but most of these still have them as part of their external architecture. Blood libel became manifest around 1144 CE in the Common Era. That's when anti-Semitism really started to blow up, okay? And allegedly, the Jews kidnapped the Christian child, they tied him to a cross, they stabbed his head to stimulate Jesus' crown of thorns, they killed him, they drained his blood of body to mix into matzahs or their unleavened bread at the time of Passover. There is no evidence that this ever occurred anywhere in Europe. It was just a myth that was created by the Christians. And incidents of blood libel continued across Europe even into the 19th century. Of course, the bubonic plague was also blamed on the Jews. The Black Death, Jews were blamed for poisoning wells and infecting people with the bubonic plague. As a result, there were a variety of pogroms. Pogroms are riots directed at a particular people, an ethnic riot, an attack, and destructions. So programs against the Jews were widespread in the Russian Empire, and then they occurred repeatedly across Europe through the Middle Ages. The Crusades became pogroms as the Crusaders marched across Europe and the Middle East on the way to the Holy Land, beginning in 1096 CE. So on the way to the Holy Land, when they see Jewish communities, they go through them and destroy them while they were at it. And of course, the biggest pogrom occurred in 1938 on the night of November 9th and 10th, or Kristallnacht, which is the night of broken glass, which is the ultimate pogrom, which Hitler's stormtroopers raided synagogues, Jewish businesses, and destroyed them. So, the 16th century, the modern era, we started to hear voices for human rights, toleration, and religious freedom, and at the same time, this European tolerant attitude was tailor-made for the Christian society. So we had German humanist and scholar, we had Erasmus of Rotterdam, who was a Dutch Renaissance humanist, a priest and theologian, and then we had Martin Luther. But with all of this tolerance were the exclusion of the Jews, which was the prevailing view. So what these people were writing about is repentance, conversion, and signs of improvement were requirements for Jews. And then for obstinate Jews who refused to convert to Christianity, expulsion from the land. So that Jesus Christ was born a Jew was written in 1523 by Martin Luther. Okay? And it had a lot of very, very favorable attitudes towards the Jews. Then, in 1543, Martin Luther produced the Jews and Their Lot. Some of the writings from Martin Luther was literally taken by Adolf Hitler when he composed Mein Kampf. So hence today, I believe that I am acting in accordance with the will of the Almighty Creator by defending myself against the Jew. I am fighting for the work of the Lord. In the first half of Mein Kampf, Hitler actually rejected Luther's views as too soft. And we're going to take a look at the actual writings of Martin Luther. He fundamentally disagreed with Luther's religious-based views, namely that Hitler rejected the view that once converted, Jews could assimilate with German culture. Hitler saw the Jews racially, yet Luther saw them religiously. So, in his, that Jesus Christ was born a Jew, okay, Luther accused Catholics of being unfair to them. You have to understand that Martin Luther was a feisty kind of a guy, and he used a lot of rhetoric. And these words have been literally translated from German. If I had been a Jew and had seen such dolts and blockheads govern and teach the Christian faith, I would sooner have become a Ha than a Christian. They have dealt with the Jews as if they were dogs rather than human beings. They have done little else than deride them and seize their property. He even goes so far as to write, if we really want to help them, we must be guided in our dealings with them. We must receive them cordially and permit them to hear our Christian teachings and witness our Christian life. So what happened? Well, he repeatedly tried to convert Jews to Christianity, and he had absolutely no success. The Jews were interested. Okay? And in 1542, the king of the area where Martin Luther was living set an edict out that all Jews should be expelled from his kingdom. So Joseph von Rosenheim, who at the time was considered the spokesman for the Jews, appealed to Luther for help. And at this time, Luther was really considered friendly to the Jews, especially because of his essay that Jesus Christ was born a Jew. And Luther refused, much to the surprise of von Rosenheim. So in 1543, a year later, Luther published On Jews and Their Lives, and it's in 4 parts. First, Luther attacked what he considered the Jews' false boasts, mainly their lineage and covenant of circumcision. Second, he debated certain biblical passages. Third, he focused on the grossest medieval superstitions concerning the Jews, like blood libel and the bubonic plague. And then fourth, Luther recommended specific actions concerning the Jews. So let's take a look at what Luther wrote specifically.
And this is on a yellow sheet in your packet.
1543, this is how Luther recommended dealing with the Jews. Set fire to their synagogues or schools, and to bury and cover with dirt whatever will not burn. Their houses should also be razed and destroyed. All their prayer books and Talmudic writings in which such idolatry, lies, cursing, and blasphemy are taught, be taken from them. Rabbis should be forbidden to teach henceforth on the pain of loss of life and limb. Safe conduct on the highways be abolished completely for the Jews. Usury should be prohibited to them, and that all cash and treasure, silver and gold be taken from them and put aside for safekeeping. Putting a flail, an axe, a hoe, a spade, a staff, or a spindle into the hands, letting them earn their bread in the sweat of their brow. And if we wish to wash our hands of the Jews' blasphemy and not share their guilt, we have to part company with them. They should be driven from our country like mad dogs. This is a really scary echo of what happened when?
Holocaust.
Yeah, 1938, the Holocaust. This is exactly what Hitler did to the Jews. Not only in Germany, but all throughout Europe. So, I'm going to turn it over to Ray.
So this, post-World War II, the 1543 document was translated into English first time. So it was stressed for Protestant and Catholic scholars to read this, but then the Jewish community read it too. So Jewish-Christian relations, just thinking about what had happened in the Holocaust, what had happened prior to the Holocaust, the build-up of rhetoric like Luther used, just looking at how Jews have been treated in Europe, treated in America, lots of Jewish-Christian relations, movements or promotion started in the 50s and 60s. And so by 1990s, we will see a statement and have you take it home and read it for the next session. We'll give you that at the end of the hour to see kind of where we're at in the aftermath of the Holocaust and the Jews and Christians relating in more healthy ways. So, hatred, I like this quote, hatred begins in the heart, not in the head. In many instances, we do not hate people because of a particular deed, so we aren't just posturing because something bad has happened or something really tragic has happened, but rather we find the deed ugly because we hate them. So across the ages in the Christian church, a lot of this hatred has built up. You want to go next slide? So we can talk about Europe and the 1800s and the build up to World War I. The tragic things happened. So in Germany was crushed and brought to its knees economically, politically. And the Treaty of Versailles, the nations in the settling of at the armistice, Germany came off on the short end. Just thinking of where are we at? How do we rebuild? What is necessary for a Holocaust to happen? We look at Luther. We look at what happened with the humanists. We look at what the church has said. Yes, maybe the necessary things were there, some of the elements, but what is sufficient to push it over the edge? So you get Adolf Hitler. The Nuremberg laws, they pretty much reflected many of the laws that had been established by the Catholic Church at councils. So we'll just show you in a moment a list of the old laws in the church doctrine as well as the Nazi laws. Well, in them, but they're corollaries. And then Kristallnacht comes. The final solution on the Jewish question. What is the Jewish question? That's fought over. But what is the solution of the Jews who are perhaps the foremost of the world's problems? So here's a little text called The International Jew, the world's foremost problems. And Henry Ford was one of the promoters of this compilation of pretty much all of the anti-Judaic, anti-Semitic stuff. This is a compilation. So just overall, from what, 1933 to 1945, that's a stretch of how long you were in elementary school to high school, right? Over those 12 years, 6 million Jews died, 12 million people came into the Holocaust, and 29 million people died. So it unfolded, kind of like a snake, right? So long as somebody that can set things in motion. So I read a book once that was probably 50 to 75 little comments by that number of people about what it was like to meet Hitler for 5 minutes or just to see him. He was entrancing, intriguing, and you were mesmerized by him or maybe put off by him. But he could work the crowd. So Hitler responds to the vibration of the human heart, the delicacy of the seismograph. Adolf Hitler enters a hall, he sniffs the air for a minute, he gropes, feels his way, senses the atmosphere, suddenly he bursts forth. His words go like an arrow to the target, he touches deep private wound on the raw, liberating the mass and consciousness, expressing the innermost aspiration. telling it what it most wants to hear. By the mover and a shaker, in raw sense of the term. And then you get henchmen that can help you design and plan. So we don't raise this up as, there are bad guys, but there are little pieces of it that are in our human nature too. And so here's Herman Gellering, how do you get people moving? Naturally, common people don't want war, neither in Russia nor England or in America, or for that matter in Germany. That is understood that the people can always be brought to the bidding of their leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them that they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in any country. So, you're not trying to do conspiracy here. This is just how you can plant the seeds and things get rolling. So here, we can leave this up on the board and you can come later and look at it. Here's the church law, Nancy's law. What do we have next? So I saw this chart. Our class, after it met in January, went in May to Cincinnati because it was 70 years after Auschwitz was shut down. And on this board on the wall was a display, so I just put it in a word chart. But euphemisms are used a lot in controls of the crowd. So here's kind of what the Nazis say, kind of working what it meant, or what it was, but what it meant. Death occurs in each one of
They
them.
called it resettlement, which really meant deportation to a concentration camp, selection of possible death. They called it Judenfrei, or free of Jews, which is an area removed of all Jews. What it really meant was murdering all the Jews in an area. They used extermination as if it was a removal of a pest. So the murder of Jews and others was not considered worthy of life. Liquidation was removal of Jewish communities from their homes, and in some cases from all of the Jewish ghettos. So deportation to a concentration camp and possible death. Special treatment was another euphemism that they used, a way to deceive people, particularly the most vulnerable, such as those who were elderly, pregnant, or physically disabled, into thinking they would be cared for. What that essentially meant was they were immediately condemned to death. The final solution was from that conference in 1942, when the Germans decided we're going to commit full-scale genocide, and they were going to eliminate all of the Jews from Europe. So, oftentimes, these euphemisms were used like, and as a counselor, I'm big into psychological defense mechanisms, right? And oftentimes these euphemisms are just a way to put up psychological defenses to immunize ourselves from the reality of which we're experiencing. So one of the deals is that we have euphemisms all over today, right? I mean, just turn on and watch the political debates. Common sense gun safety measures equals gun control. Low income Americans equals poor folk. I mean, we have euphemisms all over the place. So, right?
So Irving Greenberg and a lot of the Jewish leaders today, talking with their fellows that were survivors, trying to work through what the Holocaust was. Al Tieber has been here to the Holocaust survivor and spoke to our adult education. So he and his brother are all that are left of a family of about 70 or 80. So his main question to someone who denies the Holocaust, he says, "Where's my family?" So the burning children is
Does
right
it-
up
does-
front. So how do you do theology? How do you do Christian theology? How do Jews think through what they do?
This
You
is
have
called
to-
post-Holocaust
Holocaust
theology.
theology. Okay? And so the Church of Christ is rooted in the life of the people of Israel. So our duty is to lead the way in this. Is this just yesterday, or are we rooted in common humanity? How Jews act, Christians
And
do.
this is really going to be brought out by Dr. Julie Faith Parker 2 weeks from now. She's our new Old Testament professor at Trinity Lutheran Seminary. Really fine biblical woman. She's an ordained Methodist minister who teaches at Lutheran Seminary.
So next week, we're going to have Bob Lane here.
Right.
So we can share some of these
Yes.
concerns with him, as well as he will give us, a pretty good overview of just how Judaism is living in our society and working in and amongst themselves as they're continuing to bless the world. So, in the last part of your handout is a reading like that 8th grade student was given. And I thought kind of this one, it says, "No time to think." So in the Holocaust, as well as the end of the Holocaust, is kind of thinking, well, what happened? Adolf Hitler and all these people leading us, and everybody got caught up in it. We just didn't have time to think. So there are some bullets here that, wow, I start looking at it, and there's a busy mother, father, person involved in a family today. Well, you could use these just in your daily life. But if you put yourselves in the shoe of a Christian or a Lutheran or a Catholic in Germany of that time, how would you think about these things? So could we go back for about 5 minutes or so, Ben?
Yep.
Into triplets, and just pick up on one of these, and just that you might resonate with. Too busy to think. Yeah.
And we want you to frame that in the context of, what would your dilemma be if you were in the shoes of a Christian, a Lutheran, living in Germany during World War II? So pick a bullet point and then try to rationalize what that means for you.
look good.
Yeah. Do we have a thing here?
Yeah. Yeah. So we didn't show you lots of pictures of the Holocaust. You've seen a lot of those. There's lots of graphics out there. You can do movies. There are Schindler's List, Sophie's Choice. There's all sorts of them. So they're kind of in our head. We also didn't get into the complexities of the church leaders. We didn't show you some of that, but we could have. But we wanted to get kind of where you are at certain the common citizen base person that's in your faith community, what the struggles would be. So you have one film there that
One of the films that we looked at, Professor Olson's Jewish Christian Relations class was theologians under Hitler. And there were actually 3 Lutheran seminary professors, Paul Althaus, Emanuel Hirsch, and Gerhard Kittel, that were ardent supporters of Adolf Hitler, who after World War II immigrated to the U.S. and became professors at our Lutheran seminaries. And Gerhard Kittel is one of the books that I used in my Jewish class because he's a well-known interpreter of the Old Testament as it relates to the New Testament.
So next week, we're going to start talking about the declaration of the LCA. So I want to have you take this home and read it during the week. Little homework. And then bring it back and we'll talk more about this. Take a look at some other faith statements.
Right, is there any way you could copy that? for us?
Yes, I will. And I was going to bring a larger
Yeah.
version of that.
Okay, thanks.
We'll have Bob Lane here from the Columbus Jewish Federation. He's
Yeah.
a really excellent speaker. I heard him speak at Christian Relations class.
So I have lots of resources. You can, I'll bring them more next week if you can come up and take a look at them. There's like a 13-minute clip that you see on the Holocaust as you go through the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And I could play that like about 6:15 to 6:30.
Yeah.
We're at the end of our hour.
Can we close with the words of prayer?
Yes.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Okay, we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Yeah.
And like I said, we got 2 really excellent speakers lined up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Yeah. Oh, we're trying to share stories together.
Just sit down.
So Amy Jill Levine